Yo, how we going guys? Back with another fly tying video, and this pattern is going to be a pretty generic pattern. It's a variation of the Hare and Copper. A lot of you probably already know how to tie a Hare and Copper, but this is basically just my way of tying a Hare and Copper and the type of Hare and Copper that I'd be using in the majority of my videos. I'll write down in the description what you're going to need, but I'll quickly run over it now. So I use an orange thread, Pheasant Tail, this Flashaboo material, not sure exactly what it's called, Hares here, and UV dubbing. So as I said, it's basically just a Hare and Copper, but a few minor variations which I think just make it a little bit better than your standard plain Jane Hare and Copper. And what I've already got on here is a size G12 hook. I prefer the G hooks for some of my nymphs, just to kind of give more of a buggy look, I believe. And I've got a copper coloured tungsten bead on here. I think that's 3mm. Start wrapping your orange thread around the body evenly. Just work that up towards the top, and I generally stop about just above where the barb is, or would be if you're using barbless hooks, which I do suggest. I'm actually using a black magic hook on this one, but I do prefer the Hannock barbless hooks. And then the next step is to take just about 3 strands of this flashy material here, and you want to just cut that off fairly long so it's easy to work with. And just tie it in as if it's a tail. Just tie that back up the body, leave a bit of space towards the head, and cut that off there. Put that up. And then we're now just going to trim these 3 bits of flash here. I like to go about 3mm, 2 to 3mm longer than the bend of the hook. So it's really just, once it's cut, it just turns into a minor detail of the fly. It's not like a massive tail feature or anything like that. We're going to take some pheasant tail. I'm just going to tie that in. And I don't really mind if it splays out or if it stays straight. I'm not too fussy with that. Some people are, so just go to your personal preference there. And that tail's probably actually a little bit on the longer side, but we won't worry about that. Just work that up to the top. Cut that off there. Now we're going to take medium copper wire, and we're just going to tie that in, again the length of the body, just to keep it even body along the shank. And once that's tied in, just drop your thread down as such, and we're now just going to spin on some Hares Dubbing. Up the top for the first little bit I have it quite thin, and as I work down I put bigger and bigger clumps on. A lot of people use some kind of dubbing wax here to make it stick a bit better to the thread. It's not something I really do. I just spin it on, and that seems to hold it to the thread enough for my liking. So now that we've got all that spun onto there, we're now going to take some of this ice dubbing here. This is quite, you can actually get hares here which already has UV tied into it. I prefer to do it separately, but if you want to use that other type, go for it. I'm sure there's no major difference in it. And you don't want to go too crazy on this. So just in little segments, just putting pretty tiny bits on as we go up. And you just roll that on in the same way that you rolled the Hares Dubbing onto the thread. Now that we've got our Hares Dubbing on and our UV ice dubbing, we're just going to do our main body here. So what I like when I'm wrapping this on, and I don't actually mind if I've got a tiny bit of orange showing at the front, sort of just like another little hot spot, and I like a taper towards the head, so move that along there, and then I start sort of bulking up this end there, but I don't go too close to the bead there. I just leave a little space there just for when I'm putting the head on and tying in the copper. So now grab your copper, pretty basic step, just even wraps. And now this is why I like the orange thread, because I just like the finish that it makes on the fly. So now I just helicopter out that little bit of copper, and actually just going to go a few more wraps. Grab a whip finishing tool. Five wraps there. Chuck on a tiny bit of head cement. And cut that off there. And some people like to leave them nice and scraggly. I actually like to give them a wee bit of a tame up. Again, this really comes down to personal preference, this part. I don't like them, I like them scraggly, I just don't like them too scraggly. So yeah, that's about my liking there. And there we have what I would consider a fairly decent Hare and Copper. So the main differences in this is just that tiny bit of flash under the tail there, the UV and the orange thread. Again, it's all pretty basic stuff, and it's a pretty easy fly to tie, which hopefully is a good thing for most of you guys. But anyway, so the main key differences with this Hare and Copper to just a standard Hare and Copper is the orange thread, the UV dubbing, and the tiny bit of shine up the front, down the back under the tail, which I think makes all the difference. Just catch a few more, I reckon, than what you do with a standard one, especially in winter conditions when you're really just looking to stand out in front of the fish and get them to bite at something. So yeah, hopefully this is a fly you'll be able to go catch some fish on. Make sure to like and subscribe, and tight lines out there. Cheers.